First, it begins with hate speech and saying we're going to take down anybody if we think that what you're saying is hurtful or if anybody is offended by it, it goes. And that is already happening. It happened with Roseanne today. It is happening to you on social media. We have people that are being purged and silenced on social media. That is how it begins. And I think the other side of this is the supine compliance of the British press where they just bow down to this judge and they're not going to stand up against that. You know, we just had the left congratulating themselves about the Pentagon Papers, and I think the Washington Post did the right thing in terms of putting that out. Maybe you should ask them about Julian Assange. I mean, they don't support the free press with Julian Assange, and they don't support it with Tommy Robinson. If you can get beyond what you think about Julian Assange or what you think about Tommy Robinson and look at the principle of having an open, free society where you've got a free press, I mean, that's really the issue here. Get beyond the left and right thinking.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
That's right. They just tell us what they think we ought to know. And if they think we should know it, they put a gag order. At least that's the way they do it in the UK. I'm David Knight here with Tyler Nixon, and we're going to be going to Harrison Smith in the UK to give us a live update on what is happening there with Tommy Robinson. As we were pointing out before, this judge issued, and this is the next step of this. First, it begins with hate speech and saying we're going to take down anybody if we think that what you're saying is hurtful or if anybody is offended by it, it goes. And that is already happening. It happened with Roseanne today. It is happening to you on social media. We have people that are being purged and silenced on social media. That is how it begins. And those labels of hate are being put out there by the Southern Poverty Law Center, by Snopes, and by others on the left. And if we allow this to happen, folks, we are going to be sliding into the same kind of censorship that we see in the UK. But they've taken it another step further. Now they have gone through a kangaroo court process, and the same day they arrested Tommy Robinson. The judge sentenced him to 13 months in jail, took him off without a lawyer or due process, and then he put out a D notice, which used to stand for defense. That's what it originally stood for. Now, I guess, as we were talking about over the break, Tyler, I guess now the D stands for disappearance. That appears to be what they are using it for now, because you can't argue that this is an issue of national defense. Who are they defending?
Right.
Are they defending their culpability in protecting these Muslim gangs?
Well, I mean, national security now it's code for control, basically, is what they want. They want control, and that's what they'll use it for, they're control freaks, basically. You look at someone like a Brennan, who's a complete psychopath. I mean, the way this man thinks, I mean, he literally, it's like, you're out of power, man. Like, you're done. So stop threatening the president and acting like you're still in power. And over there, obviously,
who knows, maybe he is.
Yeah, right. God only knows.
No. All right, let's go to, we got Harrison standing by, Harrison Smith in the UK. Harrison, do you have an update on the status of Tommy Robinson?
Well, I got to say, that intro song could not be more appropriate. What I've been doing here, as you can see, I'm in front of the London Bridge on the pier here, and I've been asking people from London, locals, what they know about the Tommy Robinson trial, and they all are informed, but they're misinformed. You know, I had one guy say, well, you know, I heard the judge tell him specifically that he was not allowed in the courtroom. So he goes in the courtroom. I'm glad that he got caught. And I say, well, you know, he wasn't in the courtroom. He says, oh, really? Said, yeah, and there were a couple other things. And so I kept asking him, are you not concerned that you're making decisions with incomplete or incorrect information? And it's like, it doesn't even faze them. It's, you know, this particular guy at least was just like, yeah, well, you know, that's just the way it is sometimes. And if the court says that they had a reason, then they had a reason. And there it is. It's so bizarre. So that song, when it says, you know, they only tell us what they want us to know, it's amazing how everybody here has, anybody that knows about him has a very strong opinion on Tommy Robinson. And for the most part, as far as I can tell, it's just based off complete falsehoods.
And so they can characterize this any way they want as long as they put a gag order on the press. And I think the other side of this is the supine compliance of the British press where they just bow down to this judge and they're not going to stand up against that. You know, we just had the left congratulating themselves about the Pentagon Papers, and I think the Washington Post did the right thing in terms of putting that out. Maybe you should ask them about Julian Assange. I mean, they don't support the free press with Julian Assange, and they don't support it with Tommy Robinson. If you can get beyond what you think about Julian Assange or what you think about Tommy Robinson and look at the principle of having an open, free society where you've got a free press, I mean, that's really the issue here. Get beyond the left and right thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Julian Assange point is excellent, especially how the Democrats have this habit of President Trump will point out that the press is lying, and they say, oh, it's an attack on the press. He hates the press. He hates the free press, and he's going to destroy it all. And then you have Julian Assange airs some of their dirty laundry, and they're just like, hey, can we kill this guy? Let's go ahead and kill this guy. I mean, it's just incredible. The dichotomy that's being set up here. It's just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I had to respond to a tweet, actually. Well, it's a statement. Adam Schiff says he won't. Assange has offered to speak to Adam Schiff and clear Trump and say there was no collusion. And he says, not unless he's extradited. And someone said when he's extradited. So, well, you have to be charged with a crime to be extradited, right?
That's right.
The Justice Department's last position was Assange has committed no crimes. Unless you want to jail the New York Times and everyone, Pentagon.
Jail the New York Times, jail the Washington Post, and we should dig up the graves of Ben Bradley and Catherine Graham. I think they're deceased.
Yes,
dig them up and desecrate their bodies because they're not worthy of being respected. But that's the doublethink of the left, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, and especially with the Tommy Robinson case. I mean, it's just so Orwellian. Right? I mean, you couldn't get more totalitarian in this way that, I mean, essentially he would have just disappeared if it hadn't have been, a couple of people with him that saw what happened and that knew what happened, that he was able to keep in touch with. It would have been very easy for them to, arrest this guy, sentence him that very day, put him away for 13 months and tell no one and have nobody know. And everybody could just ask questions, and answering those questions would have been illegal. I mean, the level of absurdity, the level of there's not even a word for it. I mean, it's terrifying. It's just a terrifying precedent that's being set in a formerly sort of a paragon of free speech and of speaking to power that England once was.
Well, it's very much like the movie V for Vendetta. I mean, honestly, the black bags and they carry you away and that's the end of you. I mean, honestly, I never thought in my lifetime I would see that come to life in Great Britain. Now, I mean, the thing is, though, Great Britain, obviously, there is a lot of history there in terms of human rights, but nobody in Britain has ever said, I know my rights, because they didn't have them ever enshrined and protected. It's a royalist society, effectively. So, we look just 2 weekends ago, we had this, this big parade for the royal wedding and so forth and all this gushing and so forth. And here's this poor man being literally black bagged and taken off and disappeared in the same country and within days.
I guess one of my questions, Harrison, maybe you might ask people, the D notice, that was always put up during wartime. That's when it first started coming out, World War I. They ended it after World War II. But then they came up with the D notice. What does the D represent? It was about national defense. How is taking Tommy Robinson and gagging the press about reporting the facts of this case so that people are ignorant, how is that an issue of national defense? Or who are they defending?
Right.
Yeah, well, it's pretty clear cut. If you're doing things that you think might cause people to rise up against you, yeah, I guess it is, in defense of your position, at least, that nobody else knows that it happened, right? So, and that's kind of another one of those things. It's almost the more ridiculous their overreach is, it sort of becomes an argument for the suppression of that being brought to light, right? It's like, well, we can't tell anybody about this or else they'd be so mad. What was the, I believe there was a leaked quote from Hillary Clinton that said, if this gets out, we'll all swing from nooses. I mean, that's essentially, what the case is.
I think what this represents, and we all understand this is happening. We can see it happening in the United States with social media. We can see it happening with Roseanne Barr. If you don't support the free speech of people that you disagree with, even people that you think are repulsive, then you will have no free speech whatsoever. This all began with the hate speech laws and so forth that are being imposed on us by our social media oligarchs here, but were imposed on the UK by the UN, by the EU, by their redefining of free speech. Once you get to that point, And once they're able to silence speech on that basis, now we have still taken it to the next level with Tommy Robinson and this D-notice that should be frightening. But I think we all see that we're on a slippery slope where we have thrown away the values of Western society and what really is tolerance. You know, they always want to talk about how, oh, you're so intolerant and everything. They're intolerant of speech that they don't agree with.
Well, how much differently?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to say, how much differently is a D-notice from national security letters, FISA warrants?
That's right.
We have that in our own country right now. Let's face it. You can't even speak about it if you have a national security letter, even to your attorneys. I don't see how that jives with anything. But go ahead, Harrison. I'm sorry. I jumped in there.
Yeah.
No, that's fine.
Oh, no, it reminds me of another story that just came out today of what's our Second Amendment, which, you know, is the, gun control in England. They just, a judge just came out and said, maybe we should dole knives.
Yeah.
Maybe we should blunt the end of knives.
I know.
Right. And so it's this thing where, no, what they really hate is the idea that people are angry enough to cause violence. So, you know, the end result is, let's just stop people from being angry. Let's drug people. So they just, you know, it's really the emotion that's the cause, because what they're doing is they're eliminating the use of the tools, but the base, cause of it is still there. It's the same thing with free speech. They use hate law or, hate speech laws, or, breaching the peace, or they're trying to eliminate the tools. But really what they want to do is eliminate you having a free thought at all.
Well, I think this stuff is going to backfire on them. I think gradually the people of England are going to wake up to this tyranny. I think the movement by a judge here in the United States saying that President Trump cannot ban people on Twitter. He can't block them. He can't mute them. Well, if he can't do that, how can the president of Twitter do that?